All right, we're going to talk about what we do weekly here, general maintenance, and kind of over the winter here what we do too. We really tear things down, but as far as the weekly maintenance, we strip the body off pretty much like what you see right here, so you can get to everything, you can see everything. It's well exposed, and it's a lot easier to work on without climbing over body panels and rub rails and body mounts. It takes a lot of time to strip it down and wash everything and clean it, and inspect the body every week as far as cracks or rips and tears in it. A lot of times you got to do a little straightening work, and that's my man Jimmy's job. He pounds them all straight, beats them back, and I've seen him take a door already. It was rolled up in a ball and rolled back out. It's amazing, but he enjoys it, and that's part of our weekly deal: washing, cleaning, getting the body all off, stripped, going through it. Next, we'll nut and mold everything. All your radius rods, we usually torque them. Basically, half-inch bolt, you can probably torque it about 60 pounds with a torque wrench. That way you don't over-tighten it or under-tighten it, and it's correct specs for that size bolt. All the half-inch radius rod bolts, your tie rod bolts, your drag link, front to back, your front locate, just torque all them up. Front shocks, a lot of times we'll take them off, disassemble them. We have a shock dyno, which everybody doesn't have one, but just to check to make sure the valvings are where they're supposed to be. If you don't, you can basically take it apart, do it by hand, push it in and out. If you do it for a few weeks, you'll get the feel of what the shock should feel like. Actually, before you put it on, try to push it in and out and get a feel for it. Before I had a shock dyno, that was my shock dyno, my push in and out. Make sure you spin, the shafts aren't bent. Sometimes when you spin them, you'll see the shaft wobbles left to right. That means it's bent. Check the bodies. A lot of times you'll get a hit or a stone chip or something, and it'll bend the body, and that'll create a bind. Anytime you got binds and stuff in your shocks, you'll be chasing chassis problems, and it'll drive you nuts. But they're out front, and usually they're the first part of the arrow that hits the bullseye when there's an accident. So I would say if you're going to check check your fronts. I mean, if you do have the time, check your backs too. But a lot of times you get in skirmishes and stuff, you don't know, but you do bend the shock. Maybe not a lot, but enough that it'll affect the car's handling. So it's always good to tear them apart. Like I said, if you have a shock dyno, them. If you don't, shock dyno with your hands in and out. Spin it, make sure the uniballs on both ends are free. Spray them up with a little WD-40. Same thing when you get done with your front end there. Spray everything up with a little WD-40 to lube it up a little bit. You got grease fittings in your front spindles there. Grease them up. I oil the front bearings in my hubs and stuff. And my normal routine with them is every 3 weeks I change the motor oil. I'll change all oil in all 4 hub bearings. And, oil is cheap, especially in a motor, $30,000, $40,000 motor. Oil's cheap compared to that price of a motor. So I change it every 3 weeks, the oil in the filter. And when I do that, just to keep on a regular maintenance so I don't forget, I do all the hubs, I drain them out, put fresh oil in them too. So everything's fresh on oil. As far as the motor, weekly, I pull the plugs out, try to look at the plugs. A lot of times if you run the motor a lot after the race, you're not going to get a good plug read. You need to shut the motor down as soon as you get done and not run it to get a good plug read. Otherwise, you're kind of wasting your time. Take the valve covers off. I run the valves. I have this valve tool to adjust the valves. That's basically setting the clearance between the rocker arm and the valve. Just say it's 15 thousandths. You put a filler. You got to bring it up to where all the tension's off the rocker and check it. And this here is nice because you can break it loose, set your lash, and then tighten this, and it actually torques and gives you correct, so you don't over torque or under torque your rocker so they fall off or something. But it's made by that company right there. I highly recommend it. It makes your job a lot easier. So I'll run the valves. I'll get done with that. Then I got a spring checker. I'll put that on there. I'll check all my springs. Your motor builder will tell you your springs are supposed to be, I don't know, 240 at the seat when you pull it up, and check my springs and make sure they're all pretty close to that. He'll give you a range where they're from new, just say 240 to 210. After they drop below 210, maybe you need to start replacing valve springs and stuff. But all this stuff affects the performance of the motor. I get done with that a lot of times. I'll do a compression test. I'll spin the motor over and see how much compression each cylinder has to make sure they're all correct, all up around, just say, I think 260 rings in my mind as far as what I get on a 3-4 revolution spin on compression. Usually about 150 on the first pop. I usually do the first pop, write that down, 150, and then spin it over about 3 times, and you'll see it'll go up, and then it'll kind of stop. And when it stops, say 260, I'll write that number down. And then every week when I check them, I want to see how close it's to that. When it starts falling off them numbers, your motor's starting to get worn out, or you got an issue with something else, a bent valve or something. But that'll tell you all that, if your rings are going away, if you got a bent valve or something's wrong. Carburetor maintenance, I just basically blow it all off, clean it, spray it, lube it up a little bit with WD-40. A lot of times what I'll do is where the air bleeds are, I'll take some brake clean and spray in them to make sure there's no dirt clogging them or nothing. There isn't a whole bunch of maintenance with the carburetor. As long as it's running good and everything, I kind of leave that alone. And what we do here, which I think everybody should do, my whole MSD system here is on a panel. My coil, my MSD box, and what we do before we wash it, we pull this off and put it in on the bench in the shop. And that way, you don't want to get this stuff wet. Anytime you get this stuff wet, you're asking for problems. So it's nice that deattaches from the car, goes over there. And another nice factor about it is if you have a problem at the track, I got 2 Zeus buttons, about 3 plugs. I unplug it, we pull this out, we have a whole nother unit, and we bolt it, plug it back in, Zeus it in, and we're good to go. It's a lot quicker than having all that stuff bolted in your car on your firewall that you can't get it out. It takes a long time. So that's as far as the MSD stuff goes. That seems, of all my years of doing it, I've done it this way for years. I think I was probably one of the first guys that put it all on one panel so you can change it out quick. As far as the motor, radiator, that's another weekly maintenance deal. You've got to blow that out. We kind of pressure wash it. You don't want to get up too close because you'll bend the fins on the radiator here. So don't jam the way up close, but back here, move the fan, blow it out, because all the dirt comes in from the front and you want to blow it back out. You don't want to try to blow the dirt through the radiator. It doesn't work well. So always try to blow the dirt out the way it came in. In the front here, we have one of Art's radiators. Well, it's all Art's radiator shroud and everything. Already does all my stuff. Stone guard with this mesh on here to keep the dirt out. It's probably the best I've seen in my 40-some years of racing to keep the dirt and stuff out of there. Like I say, pressure wash it out the best you can when you get done. Then take air and blow it out. And you'll see dust and dirt, maybe a little rocks and stuff will come out. Once you get all that blown off and clean, put that back on. Another thing is making sure your water's up. We run engine ice. It helps it run a little bit cooler, a few degrees there when it gets hot summer and stuff. Very important. So we run engine ice in here. Make sure your level's up to height, because a lot of times you'll blow a little out every week. We don't have a catch tank. Just Artie does make a catch tank, but we don't run them. They're just extra weight. Belts, making sure your belts are all tight, that you don't, you get a slipping belt here, your fan doesn't work correctly, you overheat. So all this stuff is important here. A lot of times if you look at these belts, you'll see little stones sometimes get caught in the pulleys here. We have all Jones belt drive, alternators, pumps. That's all we use is Jones drive. And I knock on wood, been good to me and haven't had no problems. But sometimes you'll see little stones will get caught in here. Just take a little screwdriver and kind of knock them out, because what happens when they get caught in your belt, they're going around all the time, it wears your aluminum pulleys out. So if you clean these belts and keep an eye on them weekly, it'll save your pulleys, which will last you a little bit longer there. I guess as far as motor, like I said, every 3 weeks I change the oil, the filter. Like I said, that's cheap compared to the price of these motors. As you see, I have a little notepad here. I write down things that I need to check, or maybe I was in an accident and we need to check the right rear or whatever. I write that down on a notepad here and we scrape it off as we go along. In the cockpit here, basically our biggest thing is our Driveline there, greasing our universals and stuff, and making sure our drive shaft, everything's good in there. We do that weekly. We pump grease in there. I mean, we got greasable grease fittings that makes a mess, but I know there's grease in there. It's just the way I am. Your pickup, you got your slider plate in there. Make sure that's all clean and everything. And then you got your rubber biscuit that goes up into your pick arm. We pull that apart, clean it every week, make sure it's not gummed up and stuff, so that's all free. Anytime you got a bind, it'll screw up your handling and stuff, so you got to go through all this stuff weekly. It's a lot of work, but going through it, making sure everything's right is key to, finishing races and winning races. You don't want to be sitting along the track. Okay, our rear, I got the rear out of this car, so we'll walk over here and take a look at the rear. Like I said, we run oil in the hubs. There's a little plug here where you fill them. Usually I fill them up about, I got a little one of these here, and I take this and fill it. I'll drain them out, clean it, fill it, and put the plug back in. And what I do a lot of times, just for my mind and stuff, is when I get done filling this with oil, I tighten the plug, I put a little dab of silicone on it. It does two things. It ain't on there now because we're working on this, but a little dab of silicone on the plug, it kind of may keep it from falling out, but also too, when I see that, I know it's tight and I know there's oil in there. It's just, I can visually see it, and there's one of these on each hub. And what I do a lot of times too is when I set my axles, and I'll set my two hubs together, and this plug here, I'll line them up. And what that does is, you're at the track or something, you bang a wheel or something, you might have bent an axle, so you can look at these plugs and make sure they're dead in line, say they're both at 12 o'clock. Well, I know nothing's bent, but if they start getting out of line, something twisted, an axle or something twisted. And what we do a lot of times with the axles here, we scribe a line down them, a straight line, and that way if there's any twist or something in them, we'll pick that up and we'll toss the axle. Because anytime this line starts to go out of half a turn or something, you're twisting the axle. And usually when you twist the axles, it'll give you a vibration. So if you got a vibration and you ain't quite sure what it is, it might be a bent axle. So if you scribe it with a line, you know that, and you can pull it out. And like I said, lining your two oil plugs up, that'll also tell you, outside of the rear, that something's wrong, that you need to pull an axle and look at it. Our steering box, we use GME steering. Butch Green up there, we've been with him for years, Neil steering and stuff, and I use their steering gear. Very reliable, and they get the stuff done when I need it. What I do a lot of times with a lot of my stuff, I'll mark the date on it. We put this box in last year, I guess August 21st, so that I know how long the box has been in the car. Unless I have a problem with this, we'll run for a season with just what box I put in August. So I'm gonna start season out with it. But usually at the end of the year, we run a full year. We'll pull the box out, send it back to Butch, and they'll go through everything, make sure nothing's twisted or bent, and put new seals and stuff in it, so I don't have a problem there. Because steering's key too. You want your steering to work with your hands. You don't want a lot of play in it or binds or nothing, because that'll screw you up. Okay, back to the rear here. Like I said, we usually drain these every 3 races. We blow out the brakes, the calipers and stuff. Like now it's winter time, we'll pull these calipers off, pull all the pistons out, clean them up in the lathe there with some Scotch-Brite or something, not sandpaper, just some Scotch-Brite to clean the dirt and stuff off and put new O-rings in them and stuff, pop them all back together, because when these brakes, when they start to drag, that takes horsepower away. So you basically want to keep these clean. Even sometimes if we're racing a lot in the middle of the year, I'll pull these off and we'll pull them apart. We may not put O-rings in, but we'll clean everything, polish the pistons again, put them back together, because you want your rear to turn over fairly easy. You know, you don't want a lot of drag in it, so you want it to turn over. So that's big. Our universals, we figure, you know, I don't know exactly how many races, but a lot of times we'll pull the rear one off because it's the easiest one to get to, and then we'll pull a cap off, and if I got one here somewhere. Okay, here's a new universal. These are what you run in your Driveline here. And what we'll do is, to check it, we'll pull it apart and pull a cap off, and you wipe it off, and you look, they'll get like, see how it's nice and shiny? They'll get hazy looking. And that means they're starting to go away. I mean, if they're hazy, it ain't bad, but after hazy, they start to pit in, and then once they start pitting in, they get bad, and then they'll blow up. So I don't know what the magic number is. I mean, crates probably get away with a lot more races than a modified. We have a lot more horsepower and stuff, so it's going to tear our universals up a lot quicker than, say, a crate. But like I said, they're greasable. I grease them. We get grease all over the damn thing. It's a pain in the ass, but I know it's clean. And when you grease them, it pushes the water and stuff out if you pressure wash. When you do pressure wash, never shoot in around here, because you drive water into the universal and it'll rust it, and that'll give you problems. Then they'll start going bad. And it's the same thing when you pressure wash. Never pressure wash in on the backside of the hub into the seal. I know there may look dirty there, but try to always pressure wash in a straight line. Don't pressure wash in, because you drive water in the hub, gets in the bearings, rusts them, and you'll knock the bearing out. Very important, pressure washing. You don't want to, and the same thing in front of the rear here, you don't want to shoot it in and into the seal. It'll get through there and give you problems. Like I said, you want to make sure, like I said, that the pick arm bushing in it, we pull that apart every week, clean it up, make sure that the slider's good and all. Make sure this heim goes back and forth on here correctly, because all this stuff, when it binds up, it screws up your handling. So you want to kind of be aware of that and make sure everything's good. We have our front hubs apart over here. Like I said, usually if I run oil in them, I'll run them at least a half season, if not more, until I pull them apart and inspect them. But now it's winter time, so we pulled everything apart, check our bearings, spin them over, make sure there's no pit marks on the rollers and stuff. Everything looks nice and good. Check our seals out, make sure there's no rips or tears, or put it on there, make sure it's still tight and stuff. That's wintertime maintenance and stuff, but we tear everything down, wash it all up. Like I said, here's the pick arm bushing here, what I was trying to explain to you. We pull these apart, and a lot of times this will get all dirt and stuff in it, and it won't work right. So we pull it apart, clean it real good, maybe put a little grease on it. That's a weekly maintenance. That's what, on the front of the pick arm. We have our spindles apart here and everything. Our hubs off. We'll probably get the spindles checked for cracks and stuff, but that ain't a weekly maintenance. That's sort of a wintertime deal here. Trying to think, what else? Man, I don't know. I think that's pretty much going through it, you know. I think that's about it, you know. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of other things, you know, but working on this stuff during the week, and this is where it happens here in the shop. I mean, guys that win races, they usually win them here in the shop and work on the cars here, so when they get to the track, they're not running around like a chicken with their head cut off with a problem fixing this, or running that, or changing the steering box, or doing something when they should be watching the track and paying attention. Spark plugs, that was another thing I didn't really touch on. Usually when I change the oil in the filter, I'll put new plugs in too. Like I said, I do every 3 weeks. Some people maybe 4 or 5. It depends on your budget, but I've got an oil sponsor, so it doesn't seem to hurt me that much. So I'll change the oil and filter every 3 weeks and stuff. Fuel filter, that was one thing I didn't touch on the fuel cell. Maybe once a month we tear that apart, make sure there's no dirt or nothing in it. put that all back together. That's not an every week deal. That's more of a once a month deal, unless you're a little sloppy putting fuel in. We have a paint strainer that they use for a bucket that we use in our funnel to kind of make sure we don't get no dirt in there. But usually racers are one right here in the shop, so if you do all this correctly, it usually makes your job at the track a lot easier and gives you a better chance of winning races.